In response to the proposal by Luca Pires for the conservation of the Madagascar's Fossa, I will be presenting a counter-proposal to discuss why this project does not qualify for the proposed funding of 2 million euros. The Fossa is the endemic apex predator of the island of Madagascar. It provides top-down regulation of the biodiversity by preying on large prey such as lemurs, birds, and reptiles. These carnivores are mainly found in tropical and subtropical forests. More detail is needed in the fact sheet to highlight the ecological importance of the fossa with regard to conservation. Their distribution is mainly threatened by habitat destruction due to slash and burn deforestation, as well as hunting for bushmeat and livestock protection. Very few protected areas remain, and the population has seen a 30% decline in 3 generations, thus qualifying the fossa as vulnerable by the IUCN Red List. Half of the funding for this project will be allocated to the construction of a conservation center. Yet, the sole purpose of this conservation center will be the rescue and release of fossas and the attraction of tourists and volunteers. This solution will only impact a fraction of the fossa population on the island and provides very little direct relief from the pressures of hunting and deforestation. This arbitrary project also delays the field action by up to 2 years. The fossa specialist Mia-Lana Lurs said in an interview that the first step for fossa conservation is preventing their hunting by locals. The solutions presented in the report to this problem are very vague and inadequate. For example, the use of dogs is proposed to deter fossas from the livestock. However, this is already used by the locals and creates a new threat to the fossa populations. Another proposal was the education of children in local schools, which is indeed important in resolving human-wildlife conflict, but it does not effectively address the issue of hunting. Deforestation is another important threat to the fossa's habitat, but the report does not state the causes and extent of this risk. First, a research program is proposed to monitor the distribution of fossas on the island. However, no indication of methods of sampling is given at all. Surveying the fossa population should be a top priority, as the species is greatly under-researched. Second, the expansion of protected areas is presented, but again there are no instructions about how to achieve this, other than perhaps negotiating with the government. Indeed, legislation is very important here, but according to past experience, practical matters such as the presence of communities and ecosystem services must be taken into consideration. With the limited funds and time available, as well as the lack of planning, this step will be utterly not feasible. There is also scientific evidence for 2 other threats that have been overlooked by the proposal: invasive species and limited gene flow. Stray dogs, cats, and other invasive species compete with the fossa for food, and fragmented habitats prevent genetic exchange between isolated populations. If these problems are not addressed in the program, long-term conservation will be impossible. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, the proposal does not take into consideration the importance of local communities in conservation. A few jobs will be provided by the Conservation Center, but no other incentives are given, such as, for example, the provision of alternate food sources or the development of local businesses. Therefore, it is very unlikely that the project will be accepted by locals. To conclude, this proposal lacks the scientific background, originality, and solidity to make it feasible. The proposed budget of 2 million euros would be better invested in a more imminently threatened species.